It was supposed to be just another family business meeting. Same room, same voices, same old dismissive glances. The air was thick with pride and tradition as uncles and cousins sat around the polished wooden table, sipping coffee like they were guarding the secrets to a billion-dollar empire. And then, she spoke up. Emma. The quiet niece no one really paid attention to. She had never been invited to pitch ideas before, but this time she had something real, something promising. An investment opportunity she had studied for months, one with numbers to back it. She believed in it. She believed it could help the family grow beyond their old-school ways. But as soon as the words left her mouth, the laughter followed. Loud. Sharp. Echoing around the room like a bad joke told at the wrong moment. Her cousins rolled their eyes. One even muttered, "Stick to what you know, Emma. This isn't a hobby club." They told her she didn't understand the risks, the market, or how real business was done. Her uncle, the CEO, leaned back in his leather chair and said with a grin, "We can't just hand over money because someone read a few blogs online." She nodded, trying to keep her voice from shaking, but something inside her shifted. She had hoped they'd give her a chance. Instead, they gave her a lesson in humiliation. What no one knew, not that day, not in the weeks after, was that Emma hadn't come unprepared. She'd already secured the funding. Not from them, but from a quiet investor who believed in her vision. What they also didn't know was that this investor wasn't someone else. It was her. Emma had been building her own capital quietly for years. Freelance work, smart saving, and a few early bets in tech stocks had grown into something real. She became the very thing they thought she wasn't, an investor with leverage. But Emma didn't return to that meeting with a "told you so." She stayed silent. On purpose. Because she had just partnered with another firm behind the scenes. One that would soon become a vital supplier for the family's own chain. The twist? Emma held a silent partner stake in that firm. And the moment they found out, it wouldn't be through a family dinner or casual chat. It would come when one of their suppliers suddenly got new leverage, and their contracts were about to change. That's when the real story began. When the family business realized the quiet girl they laughed at wasn't just back. She was already 5 steps ahead. Want to see how they reacted when the truth came out? Stick around. You won't believe what happened next. Would you like help writing the next part of the story? Ideas for thumbnail text, F, or suggestions for related titles, F? Emma hadn't always been overlooked. When she was younger, her ideas used to be welcomed at the dinner table, back when her dad was alive. He had been the only one in the family business who listened to her, who took her curiosity seriously. But after his passing, things shifted. Her voice faded into the background, and the others filled the space with loud opinions and bigger egos. The business grew, yes, but so did the arrogance. The older generation believed their way was the only way. New ideas were brushed off, especially if they came from someone who didn't look the part, and Emma never quite fit the mold they expected. So she stayed quiet, but she watched. She learned. While her cousins were busy flashing the family name at networking events, Emma was reading financial reports, analyzing supply chain inefficiencies, and attending online webinars in her spare time. She noticed patterns in the company's operations: delays, rising costs, weak supplier negotiations. No one else seemed to care. But Emma saw an opportunity. The opportunity came in the form of a mid-sized logistics startup. They had the tech, the talent, and a hunger to prove themselves. The only thing they didn't have was long-term capital. That's where Emma stepped in. She didn't ask for board control. She didn't even use her last name. All she wanted was a silent partner, stake with long-term impact. Her only request was to remain anonymous. For now. Months passed. Quietly, the startup began optimizing their operations, cutting delivery times, and offering better pricing. Naturally, the family business took notice, not of Emma, but of the supplier. A new vendor that promised lower costs and better service? They were interested. Meetings were scheduled, contracts drafted. The family believed they had found the next big edge. They just didn't realize who was sitting behind the scenes, pulling the strings. Meanwhile, Emma returned to the family's regular meetings. She sat in the same chair, listened to the same voices, and smiled when they bragged about their smart supplier switch. No one suspected a thing, but she knew what was coming. She knew once the first quarterly results hit, the supplier would become essential, too vital to replace. And that's when the control would shift. Slowly. Silently. But before any of that happened, something unexpected started stirring. Her cousin Daniel, the one who mocked her the loudest, had begun asking questions. Too many questions. He sensed something wasn't adding up. He started digging into the supplier's background, looking for connections, details, anything that felt off. And then, one evening, he found something, a name on a financial filing that didn't belong there. Should I continue the next part of the story, help design a dramatic thumbnail concept, or suggest captivating title variations? Daniel stared at the document in disbelief. It was a shareholder disclosure form from the logistics startup the family had just signed a long-term contract with. Buried deep in the fine print, alongside a string of legal names, was one that jumped out. Emma thought it might be a coincidence, maybe someone with the same name. But the filing also listed an email contact, and he recognized it instantly. That's when the realization hit him. She wasn't just involved, she was invested. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. Should he confront her? Tell the others? He paced his office, heart racing. The same Emma they had dismissed, mocked, and that directly touched their business. Not only that, but she had pulled it off without anyone noticing. It made him feel foolish and threatened. But Daniel wasn't the only one growing suspicious. The CEO was also starting to question the supplier's influence. He liked the numbers, sure. Profits were improving, delivery schedules were tighter, and customer satisfaction was on the rise. But something about the deal felt too convenient. And in the business world, anything that feels too perfect usually comes with a hidden cost. He quietly requested a meeting with the startup's executive team, wanting to build a stronger relationship, but really aiming to pull back the curtain. During that meeting, he caught subtle signs, hesitant glances, quick topic changes when questions dug too deep. It was clear someone was shielding information, and that only made him more curious. Back on Emma's side, the pressure was building. She'd hoped to stay invisible a little longer, at least until the next quarter, but the cracks were forming. Daniel had started watching her more closely, showing up early to meetings, tossing subtle comments that hinted he knew something. And her uncle? He had stopped talking over her like he used to. Now he just watched, calmly, cautiously, like he was waiting for something to reveal itself. But Emma wasn't just sitting still. She was planning her next move. She had already anticipated the moment when her involvement would come to light. What she hadn't counted on, though, was how personal the backlash might get, because it wasn't just about business anymore. It was about family pride, old grudges, and decades of buried resentment that were now starting to rise to the surface. And then came the phone call, one that would change the entire game. Want me to continue the next suspenseful chapter, F? Or help you craft a hook-focused video description, F? or teaser text for a community post, F. The phone call came late in the evening, just as Emma was reviewing next quarter's projections. It was from the startup's founder, and his voice was tense. "Someone from your family is asking questions, a lot of them. He wants access to internal contracts, says it's for transparency." Emma closed her laptop slowly. "Which one?" she asked, even though she already knew. "Daniel," he confirmed. "We didn't say anything, but he's definitely suspicious." Emma felt the walls tightening. Everything had been timed carefully. Her plan was to keep a low profile until her position became too integral to untangle. But Daniel's digging was putting her months of silent work at risk. She had seen it before, how the family closed ranks when they felt threatened. The same men who had laughed at her wouldn't hesitate to cut her out now, even if it meant breaking deals or starting legal firestorms. The next morning, Daniel was already waiting outside the building when Emma arrived. He didn't smile. "Walk with me," he said. Emma didn't reply but followed him down the side alley beside the office tower. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then, Daniel turned and looked her in the eyes. "You knew exactly what you were doing," he said flatly. "This supplier? The one we've just built half our operations around? You're in it." Emma stayed quiet. Her silence said enough. Daniel shook his head. "Do you know what kind of storm you've stirred up? Uncle Mark is already uneasy, and if the board finds out—" He stopped himself. "Why didn't you just say something? Why go behind us like this?" Emma finally spoke, her voice calm. "Because every time I tried to speak, I was dismissed. I brought you value. You just couldn't see it unless it came from someone who sounded like you." The tension between them was thick. Daniel didn't respond right away. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed her a screenshot. A leaked internal email from the startup with her initials attached to a policy decision. "This is already floating around," he said. "Someone on the board is going to bring it up at the next meeting. You've got one shot to get ahead of this." Emma's heart pounded. The window was closing. What was once a quiet plan was now the center of a potential family scandal. And the real threat wasn't just losing influence, it was being seen as a traitor. As the board meeting loomed, the entire company was buzzing with rumors. Contracts were under review. The CEO had gone silent, and everyone was waiting to see who would make the first public move. "Want me to write the climax scene next? F. Or help you design a cliffhanger ending script? F. Or voiceover friendly? Dialogue version F?" The boardroom was quiet. Too quiet. Emma could feel it the moment she stepped inside. All 12 members were already seated, eyes fixed on their tablets, flipping through the same set of documents. At the head of the table sat Uncle Mark, fingers laced, expression unreadable. A chill ran down her spine. This wasn't going to be a normal meeting. Just as the meeting began, before anyone could bring up the supplier deal or Emma's involvement, Uncle Mark cleared his throat and dropped the first blow. "Before we begin, I'd like to announce that we've received an acquisition offer from a competitor, Crosswell Logistics. They've made it clear that our recent supplier change is what drew their attention. They're offering a partial merger and control over operations." The room shifted instantly. Eyes widened. Whispers broke out. Emma froze. Crosswell? That wasn't just a logistics rival. They were the one company her startup partner had warned her about. Aggressive buyouts, silent acquisitions. They had a history of absorbing smaller vendors and using back-channel influence to take over their clients. If the family accepted this deal, her entire position, her silent partnership, would be compromised. Worse, the startup she helped grow could become a tool used against her. Daniel glanced her way, his expression suddenly more concerned than confrontational. Emma realized he hadn't known either. This wasn't just a board issue anymore. It was a ticking bomb. Uncle Mark continued. They're requesting exclusive vendor rights, and that includes absorbing our current supplier into their own network. If we move forward, it means cutting ties, immediately, with our current contract. Emma felt her chest tighten. That contract wasn't just paperwork. It represented months of work, strategy, trust. And if the deal went through, everything she built would be erased overnight. She leaned forward. What's the rush on their timeline? Mark narrowed his eyes. They want an answer within 48 hours. They know how much value our chain adds to their growth. Emma stayed calm, but her thoughts raced. If the startup gets absorbed, her stake might not protect her. She'd lose her influence and likely be exposed publicly. Worse, the family would blame her for the collapse of a supplier relationship they hadn't even known she controlled. But then, as the board moved on to legal details, Daniel slipped her a folded piece of paper under the table. She opened it, discreetly. One line was scribbled across it in his messy handwriting. I found something on Crosswell. We need to talk. Alone. And just like that, the stakes shifted again. Emma wasn't just fighting for recognition anymore. She might be fighting to protect everyone from walking straight into a trap. Want help crafting the dramatic climax next? F. Or need ideas for a plot twist thumbnail? F. Or part 2 title? With strong SEO. Later that night, Emma met Daniel in the empty office lounge. The building was quiet, lights dimmed, the hum of city traffic in the background. Daniel pulled out his tablet and opened a folder. Crosswell isn't just targeting our supplier, he said. They've been quietly buying up the smaller logistics networks that serve our competitors too. It's not a merger, it's a takeover. And we're the last piece they need. Emma's heart sank. So once they get us, they control nearly half the market, Daniel finished, including ours. Pricing, delivery speed, even access to certain regions. We'd be at their mercy. He looked at her, serious now, not like the cousin who used to mock her. You've got leverage. Use it. The next morning, Emma walked into the emergency board meeting with something no one expected: power. She laid out her stake in the supplier, explained how she quietly invested, why she stayed silent, and what Crosswell's plan meant for them all. At first, there was silence, then a wave of disbelief, then resistance. Uncle Mark stood up. You went behind our backs. You could have tanked everything. His voice was low, measured, but his pride was clearly hit. Emma didn't flinch. I did what none of you were willing to do. I found a solution. And now I'm giving you a choice. Either we strengthen our deal with my partner company, or we hand over our independence to Crosswell. Daniel backed her up. She's right. This deal isn't just business, it's survival. And Emma's supplier is the only one with enough infrastructure left to compete. The tension hung in the air, thick and heavy. Finally, one of the senior board members broke the silence. We vote now. The result? 6 in favor, 5 against. 1 abstained. Just enough. Crosswell's offer was rejected. The board agreed to renegotiate with Emma's supplier, now knowing who really owned the leverage. The family business didn't just dodge a takeover. It was restructured from the inside, by the one person they never saw coming. But just as the meeting ended and people began leaving, Emma's phone buzzed. It was the startup founder. She stepped into the hallway and answered. His voice was strained. There's something you need to see. Someone leaked your involvement to Crosswell. They know who you are now, and they're coming after your supplier directly. Emma stood frozen for a second. The battle she thought she'd won was just the beginning of a much bigger war. Would you like me to write the final episode resolution? F. Help you script a dramatic teaser for part 2? F. Or draft YouTube outro lines with SEO keywords? F. Emma didn't sleep that night. She stayed up going through documents, making phone calls, and working with the startup's legal team. Crosswell's move was calculated. They weren't going to attack directly through the family business now, but instead through the supplier she'd invested in. If they could squeeze her startup with enough pressure, pull vendors, disrupt contracts, spread rumors, they could still ruin her influence without ever stepping into the boardroom. But Emma wasn't the same woman they'd underestimated. By morning, she had pulled together an emergency plan with the supplier's founders. She used her shares to call a vote and fast-tracked a partnership with 2 other independent distributors Crosswell hadn't touched yet. It wasn't easy, and it cost them more than expected, but it built a protective network, just enough to keep operations flowing and Crosswell at bay. At the next board update, Emma laid out everything, this time with confidence. No hesitation. No hiding. She explained how she'd locked in alternate logistics pipelines, secured emergency transport routes, and quietly built a backup safety net if Crosswell ever tried again. The board listened closely, especially Uncle Mark, whose silence this time came with something close to respect. Daniel nodded toward her when the meeting ended. "You saved the company. I hope you know that." Emma gave him a tired smile. "I didn't do it to prove a point. I did it because I care, whether they see it or not." From that day, things changed. Emma didn't ask for a new title, and she didn't need one. Her voice carried weight now, not because she demanded it, but because she'd earned it. The family still had its issues. Old habits die hard. But when Emma spoke, they listened. She became the silent partner no more. Her investment wasn't just financial. It was strategic, it was emotional, and it was personal. And as for Crosswell, they backed off, for now. Word spread in the logistics world that the Sinclair family had closed ranks, and that a once overlooked member had turned the tide. Competitors took notice. Emma's startup began receiving new interest, and with it, new opportunities that didn't involve hiding in the background. In the end, the family business wasn't taken over by a corporation. It was changed from within, by someone they never saw coming. And maybe that was the real lesson. That value doesn't always wear a suit, and brilliance doesn't need to shout to be heard. Would you like help creating a powerful video outro F, SEO-optimized video description F, or a community post summarizing the story F?